Hello and welcome, everybody. Hope you're having a great Friday. We asked all of you a question. Do you support a House proposal to give $1 trillion in relief funds to the states, or do you believe that money could be better spent elsewhere? Now, today, the House is voting today on this package, which is we talked about that $1 trillion for states, but this in total is a $3 trillion relief package that is expected to pass along party lines and to be sent to the Senate, where they will decide what to do with this monstrosity of a bill. But we wanted to get your thoughts on what you thought about $1 trillion going to the states, or if there's another way if this money could be spent elsewhere. We got a ton of responses, so I want to get into those. But since I mentioned the House bill, I want to just maybe go over, it might be useful to know what's going to be in this thing, or at least what is expected to pass today. They're going to do basically another round of direct payments to people. That's what's proposed. That's $1,200 per person and up to $6,000 per family. And again, that $1 trillion going to state and local governments. A repeal of the SALT cap, that $10,000 deduction. If you live in a high tax state, it's really affected like New York, Illinois, something like that. They want to get rid of that. They're also going to allow cannabis business to have access to banks, and they're going to bail out the postal service with $25 billion. So again, they're expected to pass this thing today and head over to the Senate. So with that, I just wanted to give you some details there. So by the way, Mitch McConnell replied, and I was talking about this with Rodney today on the Get Informed America podcast, which will be out this afternoon if you want to check that out, where we went really more in depth on what this bill is all about and what we can expect. But so far, Mitch McConnell has signaled that he's not too pleased. Doesn't expect that we're going to get this $3 trillion. The Senate will pass it, but there is going to be some compromise there, and there will be a significant amount of money that goes to states. So we want to set that table first, and I'm going to get right into your responses. This one comes from Gerald S., who is not his first time writing in. So I'm just for that, Gerald, because you've written in, I believe, 2 other times possibly. So I'm going to put you right to the top and read your response first. Gerald says, the government giving handouts to states and or individuals will not fix the economy. Such handouts simply destroys personal group initiative and fosters increased laziness and dependence upon the government. Furthermore, in my opinion, such handouts are unconstitutional. It's simply wrong to forcefully take my tax dollars and give them to the likes of California so that they can give freebies to illegal immigrants. Yeah. Actually, that's a good point, Gerald. That is one of the details in there, because the first round of stimulus, there was specific language in there that you had to have a social security number, which meant that, illegal immigrants, they may have a social security number, but it's not theirs, it's somebody else's, and they were not eligible for these payments. And one of the things in this draft is they will make money available to illegal immigrants to get that $1,200 a person. So Gerald is not happy about that proposal. He goes on. And it's also wrong to forcefully take my money by taxing me and giving my money and my tax dollars to unwed brood mothers by the fact that they don't pay taxes, requiring me to pay more, or the fact that they're given various handouts such as food stamps, subsidized housing, tax refunds because they get a refund. What he's saying here, because they don't actually pay taxes, and that's essentially what that $1,200 payment was. It was essentially a tax refund, if you could think of it that way. Such handouts to the needy who have been taught that their behavior of past government handouts would appropriately come from charitable organizations whose funds are raised voluntarily. So Gerald here, he doesn't want the government to be involved in this. He'd prefer this to be solved privately. This is what I'm getting here. So Gerald is not a fan of this bill. Gerald, I don't think you're not a fan of the trillion. I don't know that you'd even be a fan of 1 billion. So by that sound. So let's move on here to Charles M. He says, to the states, we are in the midst of the greatest crisis of our lifetimes, and the governors have been doing all the heavy lifting and doing a respectable job in my part of the country, with the exception of dedicated career professionals. The federal government has been MIA. So Charles wants that money to go to the states. So instead of the federal government directing where this money is going to go, but give it to the states, give it to the local governments, and let them best decide, is what I'm getting here from Charles. Thank you very much. Let's go to Jeffrey H. Money spent by dumb Congress people. Forget states. Give it to individuals who need to pay their bills. Make it at least $25,000 per person. Is this This I don't know if this is a typo. You mean 2,500 or 25,000? All right, let's throw this thing. Let's kick it up a notch for per person. 25,000 per person, 18 years or older. Well, you guys all think of that as I read that. If government spend it, then states and cities will increase their tax receipts. And so Jeffrey here wants money directly to the people. Just forget, take your $3 trillion and maybe divide it by every adult. Give it to the people, maybe something like that. I don't know what that math works out. I don't know if it's 25,000 a person or something, but it is an interesting concept, right? Because as money goes from the Treasury all the way down the line, everyone is kind of taking their cut, aren't they? It'll go to a state government, and they got to pay their employees, they got to pay administration, they've got their own little cronyism going on, and then it at some point it eventually trickles down to the people, and it's just like those PPP loans for small businesses, and I do support that, but it's like, should we just pay people instead? I don't know. That's an interesting debate. Going on here in the chat, of course you can comment here. This is live. I will read them as I am right now. We got one from Jan Hopkins. Since they don't distribute fairly, no. Okay, so right on topic there, Jan. Just talking about that. Karen Shaver says, how about we just give give every American $1 million and reinvest in ourselves, or approximate of 320 million of us. Do people really see how lost in a fund? Now, I don't know if you would actually. That's a lot of money, Jan, or Korea rather. And that's the point. So John, so here we go. So we got a thing going on here about we got instead of this 2.5 trillion or whatever. Now we're up to 3 trillion. Why not just give it directly to people? I don't think you can do $1 million. I don't think that math quite works out, but it would be in the thousands. Instead of giving it to the banks, giving it to governments, just hand it right to the people. Why not? Because we're the ones suffering most, right? There is no business without customers, and you can't be a customer if you have no money. So that's the other part of the equation that sometimes gets lost on this. All right, so let's continue here. We got Janet S. Do you realize that any money given out by our government is our tax dollars? So be prepared for your tax dollars to go up, 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 up. Yeah, that's, of course we know that, but it is, you don't really always think on the backside that this money has to get paid back one way or another. Or will it? I don't know. Hard to tell. I mean, these numbers are so big. Will they ever get repaid? James M. says, anything to cheat Americans. Dave P. says, the only release from Democrats is out of office. Jim H. says, they are nuts. So here we're not a fan. Jonathan B. says, please don't spend any more money on relief. So Jonathan thinks this money is not the answer here. And it was actually, there was a story on Informed American this week. It was voters think free money won't fix the economy. This comes from result of a Rasmussen poll that found that 56% of likely voters disagree that the U.S. government can buy its way out of our current economic problem. Only 22% think it's possible. So many of you are like, fine, you want to spend the money? I get it, but it's just not going to work. Maybe since I don't think it's going to work, spending all this money isn't a good idea. And that seems to be where Jonathan B. is. Ann M. came up with a very colorful message. There are a lot of hearts, emojis, down thumbs, and skull and crossbones in here, but I'll try to get through the actual words. Ann says, I'm a proud Democrat, and during this COVID, there's actually it's like a virus emoji. Interesting, very creative there. And COVID-19 pandemic, we the people, including the heartless Mitch McConnell, not like Mitch McConnell, and the Republican majority in the Senate and the goddamn so-called president should be helping the states as much as possible to avoid more deaths. Here's hoping you and your loved ones have to personally fight this scourge, and if that's what it takes for y'all, have a heart and empathy for other human beings, fellow Americans, and all. So not a fan of the president, not a fan of Mitch McConnell, and she wants that money to go to help the states to help fight this thing. So thank you for that, Ann. Alan Vance, he says, states should not receive funds to manage their lack of knowledge of Finance 101. Money should not go to fund pensions that affect only a small percentage of the population. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this money that's going to go to the states, say, I don't know, New York, Illinois, Michigan, you name it, California, they are underwater in their state pensions. They can't, they have such huge liabilities, and some of this money will go to bail out the state pension systems. And it's like, well, this isn't what it's ostensibly for, right? This is to fight the coronavirus and to affect people out of work and stuff like that, not to bail out state pensions. So good point, Alan. Lewis H. says, I am against this additional Democratic boondoggle boondoggle. And so is Mitch McConnell. He called it I have the quote here somewhere. He called it an 1,800-page seasonal catalog of left-wing oddities. So you're right there, Lewis, with Mitch McConnell. Kenneth K says, no. Do what anyone else would do who can't pay their bills, which I assume... See, that's the thing, though, because the federal government could just kind of create money that they want, so they don't necessarily have to pay their bills like you and I, unfortunately. Edgar L. says, I am adamantly opposed to the $1 trillion she... referring to Nancy Pelosi, wants to give to the big blue states that have mismanaged their funds over such a long period of time, way before the virus hit. Yeah, we were just talking about this. Some of these states are California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey. Why should taxpayers pay for their underfunded retirement plans and other fluff items in their budget? Good question there, Edgar. And if you've got an answer to that, if you've got a response to any of these responses, I'd love to hear what you think. Maybe if you think someone's makes a good point or someone is wrong, go ahead and put it here in the chat and we can discuss it. Rebecca C says, this thing is totally garbage. I say they should keep our money because their offering is not free. Furthermore, the only thing we will get out of it is more enslavement and more crony capitalism. This is all a game the elites are playing in order to control us. I am not interested in playing this game. I don't believe most Americans want any of this bull scat. Get out of our way, and we will get this economy going again. Tim F says small businesses should get the trillions. Yeah, so we want to go right to the small businesses, not give the money to the states. You don't want any of this bullscat either. Bill H. says, who will be repaying the huge sums sought by Democrats? When will this payment become due? They're obviously trying to buy votes, but that will only work with stupid people. I disagree there, Bill. I think you can buy votes at any intelligence level. I think people are greedy, and they will take money, and they're happy to vote whichever way the money flows. Roger Q says, as a concerned American, I suggest President Trump not sign this bill if it gets to his desk. Geraldine T says, I absolutely do not agree with the majority of the House in giving bailouts dollars to failing states. Additionally, I am not in favor of another bailout for the rest of Americans. It's time to reopen our country. It's time for people to use common sense and protect themselves. I feel that enough is enough, and how this money is going to be repaid, I don't see it. I read yesterday that the House, Dr. Fauci, and Mnuchin believe this is the best time to pass another multi-trillion-dollar bill because interest rates are so low. So we're going to be borrowing from my children's and great-grandchildren's and their grandchildren's future, and I believe that's the wrong thing to do. Thanks, Geraldine. Gary F. says, is that the free money that the 1% were given in unnecessary tax cuts under Trump's leadership, or the money used to prevent absolute destruction of the economy as we know it? Maybe you mean the money we are going to be giving industrial farms to make up for the losses they're seeing due to the Trump tariffs. Or is it the free money that we as taxpayers spend to transport Trump to his Florida home so that he can play golf? By the way, you should be happy, Gary, that Trump has been confined to the White House. He's not making those taxpayer trips to Florida. Please clarify, especially since Mr. Trump is the one responsible for bungling the response to the COVID-19 epidemic. What do you guys think of Gary's comment? Is Trump responsible for this whole thing? And is it just like giving money to the 1%? It's because of Trump's tax cuts or the money to help out farmers due to the tariffs? Now, I'd be curious, though. I mean, that money, Gary, let me back up. That SALT deduction that the Democrats want to repeal, that's going to primarily help the top 1% in high tax states. And as we talk about money given to industrial partners because of the tariffs, I mean, look at where we're at now. Could you imagine if we didn't slow what we were buying out of China and didn't slowly wean ourselves off them to become less dependent? Where are we now? We would have no choice. Our economy would be even worse now. Anyway, let's move on. Michael D. Using federal money to help states is not the best use of funds. So far, the best use of funds is directly to millions of small businesses that are going to fail without it dragging down the whole economy. That's right, Michael. I think I would agree. Get it to small businesses, or even as I was suggesting, just give it right to the people. You know, again, workers, consumers, you can't buy anything if you don't have money. The business won't work if people don't have cash to buy things. So that it really goes both ways. Lewis W. says it's not meant to fix the economy. It's about buying votes. Okay, Lewis is suspicious as well. Tammy Smith says let the states be responsible for their own problems and find their own solutions. They created the problems. Why should American taxpayers fix their mistakes? Good question, Tammy. Kathy W. says, I strongly oppose the House proposal to spend $1 trillion in relief to the states. Where is this money going to come from besides clean air and further debt to China? Good question there. Yeah, with more debt to China. This is an opportunity for the Democrats and possibly some unsavory Republicans to line their own pockets as those of the special interests. Yeah, it's just like I said, that money's going to come down in the Treasury and it's going to trickle down and everyone's going to take their piece of the pie. And is it really going to help Americans? I don't know. We got so Nancy Greening just chimed in here to the topic. She says, no, absolutely not. She's not a fan of this $1 trillion to the states. Also, what do you just think while we're here, while we're discussing it, and while you're listening, that, in addition to the $1 trillion to the states, what about this $3 trillion in general? Do you support that? Let me continue with the responses. Ralph K says the Dems plan. Bad news. Diane M says, get America back to work. Not clear there if she's in favor or not, but yes, I support the sentiment. Let's get back to work. Rich N says the only way to fix the economy is to put people back to work in the private sector. Yeah, I agree, Rich. Joe W. says we got to get people back to work now. Stimulus will not work, but just put our country deeper in debt. We also need to end the coronavirus hoax. Uh-oh, Joe, where are we going here? I'm not saying that it's not serious, but it's proving to be no worse than the flu. Well, that's not quite true, Joe. I mean, it's not as bad as some people said, but it is. I believe deaths have already surpassed what would have been for the flu. So it is more serious than the flu. But to your point, we're not getting 2 million dead or anything like that. And even Fauci just said this week that some of the models predicting 200,000 cases a day or something like that is just not going to happen. So good point. This says the Democrat-controlled states are refusing to open, believing in keeping the economy down will defeat Trump in November. Love to know what all of you think of that. What do you think of Joe's comment here? Are blue states staying closed to hurt Trump, to hurt the economy, to claim, because there is something maybe to that. I'm not the first person to say this, but if you look back in the last couple of months, what we heard was about flattening this curve, right? It's because the bell curve of infections would spike up and go down. We really want to social distance to keep that down. And now that we're flattening the curve, it's like they've moved the goalposts, right? Now it's we can't do anything until there are no more deaths and no more infections, and God knows when that's going to be. We're looking at a vaccine possibly a year from now. That's just when is that going to happen? So what do you think? Do you think that this change in rhetoric and blue states being reluctant to reopen, although that is changing a little bit, is this political? Love to know what you think. I'm going to continue with think on that. Tim P says bailouts will do absolutely nothing to help states crawl out from under their deficit from mismanagement. That's the problem with liberal left side government. It's time they face the music. We hold firm. We can once and for all bury the left in their forms of government. Oh, Tim's out for blood. Louise M. Okay, last one of the day, guys. Louise M. says every piece of legislation should be considered individually. They should never be combining actions into one bill. This is a great point. Great final point, Louise. Do we need $3 trillion in one bill, 1,800 pages, as Mitch McConnell called it? And this was the thing before with this fight over the PPP. Give money to small businesses, one bill, done. Whether you agree about bailing out the Postal Service or not, just do one bill for the Postal Service. That's it. You got to send money to families. That was really priority one. In my opinion, forget small businesses, which I think would be number two. Number one is money directly to families. They should have right off the bat passed one narrow bill to send checks directly to Americans, and then do small businesses, and then do hospitals or whatever it is, whatever that priority is. Why do we need these gigantic bills? And we know why, right? Because the greed. And we talk about, there's a comment there about crony capitalism ahead, and that's kind of where it starts. It's governments basically allowing grift all the way down the line. So I agree 100%. We need to thin slice these, make Congress work, forget this recess stuff. if you got to stay in session the whole time, just do it. Pass something, not these giant pork bills, which because we all know, right? When you hear these giant numbers, you know it's just going to get diluted and it's not going to be effective. Something more targeted, something that just says, all right, here goes the businesses, here goes the hospitals. Everything is a separate bill, narrow language, not these monstrosities. I think that is the answer. So thanks, Louise, for that comment. I want to thank all of you for commenting and sending in your responses. Oh, we got one more here in the live chat. Michael Boyle says there have to be consequences for, quote, playing partisan politics. Unfortunately, everyone is poised to crucify this POTUS. So Michael thinks all this stuff has been politicized. And it's hard to disagree. I mean, everything now is so polarized. And as we're heading into, here we are in the middle of May, getting at the beginning, just the beginning here of this horse race that will take us through November. We are in a very different world than we were in just a few months ago. And as we try to figure out what's going on here, I mean, it seems like, again, the House will pass this $3 trillion package, then which it will be sent to the Senate, and then they will negotiate and pass something. We're not sure, as more details come out of what the Senate is looking at, I'll be here to report to you some of the details of that, and then get your thoughts on it, have a discussion about all this stuff that's been going on. Once again, I want to thank all of you for your responses. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for being a part of this community. And look out for a video come Monday afternoon.